Administration Bill. Then there's the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, as well as the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill. The Federal Inland Revenue Service Chairman, Dr. Zach Adediji, says the new tax regime will begin on the 1st of January 2026. Okay, so here we are. We'll be looking at that today. Everybody is clapping hands there. All sorts of representatives from the National Assembly that got a lot of kudos for being, as patriotic and cooperative and not wasting much time, if any at all, in going through this bill. The bill took a fair bit in the sense that initially there were misunderstandings. There were misunderstandings about the bill, but all of that has been resolved, hopefully to the satisfaction of all. And, from the Senate president to some governors and ministers, everybody was there yesterday. So it's a happy day. And a guest this morning, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, our friend, is CEO of Kari Assets Management Limited, and he's joining us by Zoom. A fine morning to you, Johnson.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. Good to have you. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much, sir. Same here. I was just being enthusiastic in describing the passage of the signing into law by the president of 4 tax reform bills, because it is seen that this is like, as Mr. President put it in the short remarks that he had, it signals to the world that Nigeria is ready for business. It's put its house in order, and let me take your view on this matter, because there seemed to be an initial misunderstanding, or shall I say incomplete understanding, because there was opposition to it until further talks sort of ironed out those wrinkles. Give me your commentary, please, if you will, on the 4 tax bills signed into law by Mr. President yesterday.
Well, if we have to use a single sentence to describe the signing of the 4 laws, 4 bills into law, I think what we have done is to bring Nigeria's tax system to be in tandem with current realities of the society. Most of the laws have become obsolete, archaic, and no longer very relevant to our current environment. Some of the laws had made provisions for some allowances that were no longer tenable. Some of them, the laws, like I said, have become very archaic. But most importantly, this law will help us harmonize our fiscal environment, as well as make it more predictable for people to understand the tax obligations that they have to comply with, and reduce the multiplicity of
Okay, it just, please bear with us. It does seem that there's a network issue. Okay, Mr. Chukwu is back. Okay, please continue. You went momentarily. You went away momentarily, but that was just for a few seconds. You're back now fully.
Okay, good. So what I was saying is that the signing of these 4 bills into law has actually brought our Nigerian tax system to be in accord with the economic evolution of the country.
Okay, yes, indeed, because I was just looking at one of the reports. It's supposed to be removing as well redundant overlaps, and it's boosting investor confidence as it enhances transparency, and will be promoting coordinated efforts across all levels. In other words, perhaps, our tax laws have become something of a mishmash of complexity, but apparently, this is now sort of settling down, that is making things settle down a bit, right? Okay, I think there's been
one of the things that happened is that for a very long time,
Please continue. Sorry. Please
Can you
continue.
hear me, Okuyori?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay. One of the things I said has happened over time is that we kept coming up with new laws that are related to taxes. Some of them we don't even call them tax laws. And so those things keep building up. You have a government comes up, they enact a law that imposes taxes on the citizens of the corporates. And then another one comes, and then you now have multiplicity of laws that are all taken from our bosses. I think one now we're going to have a piece of legislation or laws that are all, call it, nothing is, of course, nothing is completely all encompassing, but it's more comprehensive and addresses one, the issues around imposing taxes on those who cannot afford to pay taxes, making the tax system more progressive, harmonizing the number of taxes that we collect, and making the tax system very predictable. I think that's what these tax laws have come to, that are going to do for the country.
Okay. And are these things that foreign investors sort of customarily look at whenever they want to go into, as they want to expand their businesses into any territory? Are these the kind of things that is part of their own, what is it called now? Just due diligence? For instance, foreign countries wanting to come to Nigeria, a look at our tax laws, would that be helpful to them?
Yeah, if you look at it. Okay, in response, I would say that when investors want to come into any foreign country, they look at a number of factors. Among those factors include the tax system and the tax rate. How predictable is the tax system? How efficient is it to assess tax and pay taxes? But most importantly, what is the effective tax rate in that economy? They look at that, but there are other factors they also look at beyond the issue of the tax system. But for most investors coming from more advanced countries, the tax rate is very important to them because they are saying, look, if I make 1 naira, what percentage of that 1 naira will I have to pay the government as taxes? They also want to ask, what is the process of paying those taxes? They want some level of certainty and predictability, which I referred to, that we're not going to have a more predictable tax system where taxpayers can know what tax obligations they are subject to. Not that you'll be driving on the road and somebody stops you and say, where is your driver's license? You give driver's license, they ask you again, where is your waste bin receipt or payment receipt that you have paid for waste bin? And you're driving a private car, stuff like that. And then you don't know which tax authority or tax agent you run into. So that will, I hope that with this new laws, that will be put in a permanent abeyance. So, but what they're interested in your tax system, yes. They're interested in how the system works, how certain or predictable it is, and then what is the tax rate. Those are factors that come into play in deciding on which environment to invest in beyond other factors that are also considered.
Indeed. But whereas of course, we're talking about business now because that's very, very important, and that's part of the whole revenue drive of the country. But there are other aspects to taxation that affect us individually and personally, and this will vary from country to country. You hear about different tax rates in countries on income, for instance. I note that if you earn below 250,000 naira in our scenario here, you are exempt from tax. But then just, zipping across for the sake of comparison to places like America, I understand that there are instances where income tax actually will exceed much more than 50% of what that income is. There are reasons for this, and it's understandable. Is it going then inheritance tax, property tax, and all? Are all of these captured in this reform that we have on our hands here?
Well, a couple of them are captured. I think I need to go to the final thing that was signed. I know there was a pushback on inheritance tax at the point of the law was being going through the National Assembly. There was a pushback on inheritance tax. But in terms of capital gains tax, is there? In terms of the progressive nature of the tax is very pronounced, and which is what you have alluded to when you say, look, for those who are earning 250,000 and below, or below 250,000 naira, they are not going to be subject to tax. Previously, we used to have minimum tax, which imposed at least a percentage for every income of even those who are earning very low income, for the income of those who are earning very low income. So that has now been expunged from our tax system, and they are saying, look, below 250,000 naira, you're not going to pay any tax. So that's considered maybe a minimum wage, your income you need to survive. And then, of course, the issue is that if you look at the allowances, personal income, if you look at, for instance, personal income of tax computation, what happens? You have some allowances that are granted to you based on your global income. Then after those allowances, the tax rate increases progressively as your net income increases. So you see your tax rate will keep increasing as your to up to a particular threshold as your income or net income after deducting the allowances granted to you increase. So that's very progressive, which is what may be what you were referring to when you said in America, some tax rates are going as high as 50%. So you have, that means you're in the maximum income tax bracket. But for corporate organizations, the corporate tax is still flat. Of course, the higher the amount you make, the higher the volume of tax or you pay, but it's not as progressive as personal income tax because you have a tax rate, I think 30%, and then you have your education tax, and then the other taxes they've also added. So I think the effective tax rate, will be in the region of 34-35% now. Of course, your effective tax rate will depend on the allowances you enjoy as a corporate organization. But those are technicalities. But the basic thing is that personal income tax is always progressive. The higher income bracket you belong to, the higher tax you pay. So people are paying tax at all.
The other thing about taxation is that it's always been problematic from the point of view of the citizenry. I don't know where we're going to develop into it, where, even as a private citizen, you take it for granted that you do owe the duty to pay taxes. Nigerians, and I don't think we're alone, they haven't liked paying taxes. And I don't think that's just about Nigeria. And in the past, we've been talking about so much leakage from the tax net. Do you think this is going to go very far in terms of, blocking those leakages, as it were? And will generally, because we're talking about this is a reformist kind of a bill, 4 of them together. What do you think? The leakage that the people keep on talking about, we don't capture all that we should be able to capture. Would loopholes be blocked in this bill such that just about everybody who is owing tax is going to be able to pay it conveniently?
Well, what I would say is that in terms of loopholes, a lot of progress have been made with technology. Today, they can easily compute your global tax based on your tax identification number, based on your BVN. Once they use your BVN, they can actually determine every account you have in any bank, and they can sum up. And for corporate organizations, they use their tax identification number or TIN to generate their overall turnover. And based on that, if their tax filing is not appropriate, they can easily levy based on judgment tax on them. But what we're going to see is that with the harmonization of taxes, it will certainly a tax reform process went out to achieve. So you want to bring a lot more people into the tax dragnet and reduce the burden on the few who are paying, as well as eliminate burden on those who cannot afford to pay. That is those who are below certain income category, which you mentioned about 250,000 or below. So, but clearly, the tax reforms in terms of regulation, in terms of coverage, in terms of identification of taxpayers, I think are going to stimulate a lot of things. But most importantly, these laws, not longer bills, will help in making tax payments more convenient.
Okay.
And the setbacks to our previous tax system where before they pay. The key thing is to make the tax payment system, the tax self-assessment very seamless. The self-assessment in the first instance will be seamless. So you and I can easily assess ourselves for tax and make tax remittances on a monthly basis if our income is monthly or what incomes we make from our business activities. So those are the things that, and the key thing, once you have voluntary compliance, then it makes the tax system a lot more robust.
Okay. Somebody has called in from Benue. We didn't catch the name. Good morning in Benue. Would you like to go ahead now? The caller on the line from Benue, we didn't catch your name, but if you're listening, go ahead now.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. The name, please.
My name is Simon Akunya. Good morning, Uncle Yori. My name is Simon Akunya from Ukum Local Government.
Okay. Thank you very much. You're very welcome. Please go ahead with your contribution.
My name is Simon Akunya from Ukum Local Government.
I heard that. Thank you. Thank
Ukum
you.
Local Government, Benue State.
Thank you. I heard that. Yes, please go ahead with your contribution now.
Yes, my take on this is I congratulate the President and Nigerians for I want to first of all congratulate Mr. President for giving us a new tax law.
All right. Go ahead, please. Continue.
Giving us a new tax law.
Okay.
But what I want to ask you is this new tax law going to be to the advantage of the less privileged Nigerians or what?
You were just asking, is the new tax law going to be to the advantage of, I didn't catch that, of what? That connection appeared to be a bit difficult, and I think we lost that caller calling in from Benue. No wonder the producer guys just, shunted him to me. They couldn't make out the name themselves. Instead of them, and they didn't know how to spell it. So they shunted it to me. And I said, thank you very much, sir. We heard that. So that's that then. But just to also tell you that in addition to Mr. Johnson Chukwu, CEO of Kari Assets Management Limited, who is with us on Zoom, we are also joined in the studio by Mr. Omarui Edogiawere. The last time he was here, he actually gave me a pass mark on pronouncing that name.
Also give you a pass mark. Good to see you, Uncle Yori.
Indeed. Thank you very much for coming, sir.
you.
He's a startup business lawyer and financial analyst. He's joining us in the Lagos studio here. Okay. All right. Let me bring my first question, Mr. Chukwu. Let me bring my first question to Mr. Edogiawere. I noticed that there's one of the four bills is on the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill. And if I understand it correctly, that's about not necessarily taxation revenues to be collected. So why is there a need for, a special sort of a board again, a special establishment because there are 4 of them, as you well know: the Nigeria Tax Bill, the Nigeria Tax Admin Bill, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill.
So, as it's often said, one of the surest things is taxes. So at every strata of and level of government, there are tax obligations. One of the key things that I think the Oyedele committee at the time had stressed was the need to harmonize and structure and do away with a lot of duplicitous taxations and taxes and levies and all that. So I would believe that the only way you can really achieve an impactful result is to have a harmonized framework that brings all the relevant parties into the room, and you can only do that with this Joint Revenue Board, right? Recall that one of the fallouts of this act is that all the taxes and levies being taken by all agencies of government, levels of government, will be streamlined to a single source, right? And if it's anything to use as a benchmark example, the Treasury single account, you know, and all that, is that sort of arrangement that's coming into our tax regime. So you can streamline inflow and manage appropriately how the resources are coming in. It also helps the taxpayer and makes it easy for the taxpayer to comply. But then again, if I know that you are going to collect my money, right, and he knows that you're going to collect our money, then we need to either be in the room or have someone in the room to ensure that, you know, what should come to me after you have collected everything does not fall by the wayside. So I think that's what the intendment of the act is. It's a lot to unpack. For acts are not what you can even discuss in 5 hours.
Indeed.
But essentially, what is the intendment of that law, and what is the ultimate objective? The ultimate objective is to make it easy for citizens to pay tax, government to get. And if you look at our tax to GDP ratio, Nigeria is one of the lowest. We're barely 10%.
And we're still complaining.
Yeah.
You know? We don't like paying even that 10%.
Yeah, and for OECD countries, the minimum is 34%. So you can imagine that, you know, we're lagging behind. But then again, I will tell you, if you look at the data, I'm a data guy, and if you look at the data, you will find that many non-state actors, for want of better language, or entities tend to have a chunk of these monies because they are taking advantage of a lacuna that government has not filled. And I believe that this act and adequate implementation will ensure that that lacuna is filled, and government can now get its money, right, and do what it should do with those monies in order to get the right encouragement, right, and get people to be happy to pay their taxes, right? Because if we see our taxes working, then we're happy to.
You think we'll ever get to that stage?
Oh, we have to get to that stage if these laws will really work, right? If we do not want a dead letter law, then it's important that our taxes must now be converted to infrastructure, must now be converted to social welfare. We must now look at the social theory, right? We must look at making life easy for the average person by utilizing their contribution to government work, because that's what we do as private sector players. You are contributing to what government is supposed to do by paying your own part. The government must now play its own part. But again, when you also look at the larger picture, what are the indices, right, to measure impact? And so I think that beyond celebrating the enactment of the act, and kudos to Mr. President and the team, but it's also important for us to look at what are the measures for implementation. And I do hope that the enactors or the drafters of the law, right, and the parties that were part of the process are not, you know, giving a handshake and waved goodbye. They must also actively work closely with the finance and fiscal team of the federal government to handhold implementation at least for the next 2 years, right? From 2026 to 2028, and then you measure what the impact is and how well. And really, I always say, look, when it comes to laws, laws are not cast in stone. When you implement, you now find that maybe there may be a few places to tweak here and there in order to ensure that you get the real, actual value.
Thank you very much. And you see, Mr. Chukwu, as he was just saying, as Amoru was just saying, you know, the 4 laws, it's a heck of a lot to unpack, which is just as well that the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Dr. Zach Adediji, has said that the new tax regime begins on January 1st, 2026. But did you want to add to, you know, what he has just said as it concerns the whole non-taxation revenue that is also captured? And he spoke about, I think you also spoke about it, the Treasury single account. Now, will that be, is that now superfluous, or will it still be working in this particular melee?
You said, pardon, come again. You said, is that supposed to do what?
I said you know, we were talking about the Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and I was looking at we had a Treasury single account before now. Is one to replace the other, or can the two somehow still be working side to side, side by side?
Well, at least we have a transition period which is between now and end of this year.
Okay.
So they work side to side between now and the end of the year. They will use that timeline to integrate their end processes into a single Nigerian revenue service. So which is what the new name, because calling it Nigerian Revenue Service simply means you are bringing other government revenues into single management. Like I said, it will create a lot of harmonization. Let me give you an instance. Mr. Taiwo Edele has said repeatedly that, I think even the minister said that, that Nigerian law stipulates that taxes are paid in Naira. But there are government agencies like NIMASA, like Nigerian Post Authority, that collect taxes in dollar. And if you recall, under this current government, they had said they were abolishing the collection of taxes in dollar, because it was putting pressure on the Naira exchange rate. But higher continued today. But if they now come, all of them, NIMASA, Nigerian Post Authority, if all of them come, their revenue collection process come under the same umbrella, under the Nigerian Revenue Services, then it's easy to harmonize those things and use taxes as proper physical tool for economic development, which is in tandem with what my colleague there had said, that beyond the issue of collecting from taxpayers, government must also carry out its own civic responsibilities, including providing infrastructure, improving security, improving the standard of living, creating opportunities for private sector to thrive, and create employment as well as earn living wage. When we make reference to, which had been made in this conversation, on tax to GDP ratio, we don't seem to factor in the fact that our economy is structured in such a way that a reasonable part of our revenues are generated by one, informal sectors like sector. 24% of total GDP is agriculture. Okay, and that sector is still peasant farming. So you may end up with a 25% or a reasonable percentage of the agriculture sector not paying taxes or earning income because of the peasant nature of operation of the agriculture sector today in such a way that you are unable to track and trap their income. That sector, there is no so much of benefication until we just have the Dangote refinery and a few of the downstream operators. Previously, it was all about producing crude, which there is no much of value addition on the exporting. So in that case, you see a contributor to the GDP that is non-mirrored in terms of employment, in terms of personal income of people in that sector, and in terms of your personal income taxes. Of course, we know that in terms of petroleum profit tax, it was quite high, which had been moderated under this new law. So, and then you look at your trade sector about 16 billion of the GDP. That's still largely informal. You do have a very few structured trade operators. The rest are mom and pop shops, corner shops that they are not able to track and trap their income and impose tax on them. So the structure of our economy is a contributory factor. And then for the corporates who are duty-bound to pay taxes, they're also paying a lot of informal taxes. Like I said, you stop on the road, you are driving from here to the east, and then you get to Benin, they will stop you on the road and say, look, where is your radio tax? Where is your tax? You pay those taxes. Beyond that, you also account for your own government. You build your road, you provide your own power, you build your water system, and sometimes the government comes to tax. I mean, my office here, I've had instances where they asked me to pay for, they gave us a bill to pay for water. I said, we don't have water in our office. We did our own borehole. They said we have to pay. They didn't say we have to pay for, what do you call it, hotel, eatery, that our people bring food from their homes and eat in that. I said, look, we never pay for that. You have to go to court and get that from us. So there are also taxes that are completely cannot be accounted for, which this tax law will help us eliminate.
Okay, well, hopefully. Tell you what, we'll take a quick break now, and then I'll come right back and we'll dive a bit more into these issues. Stay with us, please.
I'm Nifemi Oguntoye, news anchor with TVC News.
My day is usually busy, and it's difficult keeping up with breaking news stories, trending stories, business news, stock exchange, and what have you. But with TVC News on WhatsApp, I'm able to catch up with all the breaking news, real-time updates, and trending stories on the go, right on my phone, no matter where I am. It's quick, easy, and always on. And here you can join us by scanning the QR code or using the link on our X and Instagram. Why wait? Come to the side of news that keeps you ahead. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
Okay, welcome back, and our guests are still in place, thankfully. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, CEO of Cowrie Assets Management Limited, and Mr. Omari Edogiawe, startup business lawyer and financial analyst, right beside me here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Chukwu spoke there a bit about the informal sector and being able to capture them rightly. This has always been a challenge. Talk us a bit through the nature of the challenge, and he was hoping that, well, this would also address that. Do you think so?
Well, again, until we begin implementation, we really will not be able to tell what the pain points are, right? Everything is still coming from an ideological and theoretical perspective. When implementation starts, we'll see. But again, we need to also look at what has happened before now. The informal sector has been allowed to run on its own for so long that it has become the norm. And government has played a very distant observer. And this is because of the death of the last level of government, which is the local government. Because the local government was supposed supposed to be that direct pulse between government and the informal sector. When you talk about the market women, you talk about the farmers, you talk about small, petty traders, they're supposed to be engaged, and that data is supposed to be mined from the local government. I do hope that with this harmonization, a lot of that will be addressed. Firstly, we must now begin to look at what are the bodies that regulate these businesses. When you say informal, I oftentimes even beg to disagree, and I'll tell you why. There is no sector, no business in this country that does not have a form of regulation, either internal or external. Case in point, even the vulcanizer who is gauging your tires just down the road, right? If you walk up to him, he could tell you, oh, prices have gone up to 500 naira.
That's right.
To 1,000 naira. When was that? We just changed it yesterday. Who are the we?
Who is the we?
They have a union. Guess what? You drive from Eko Atlantic and you drive to Oshodi, ask the vulcanizer the same thing, he gives you the same answer. You go all the way to Ikorodu, you get the same answer. What is happening? They have a system, an internal system that regulates them.
There's a network.
Government is outside that system.
Yes.
And so there's no form of direct engagement. And so what people have decided, and bodies like this, especially in the informal sector, have decided to do, is to become a system that self-regulates themselves. Determine pricing, determine structure, determine system. You would hardly find a vulcanizer working after 7 p.m. Why? They have a system that says after 5 or 6 o'clock, they close. And so, in fact, I had a tire, and I said to my driver to please get a vulcanizer. And the vulcanizer said, oh, if my people find me now, they feel penalize me. They feel find me because I'm not supposed to work for this time of the night. I just want to help you. There's some form of regulation that government is not part of.
Indeed. Now, you're just saying that just reminded me about the peculiar, if that is the right word, of Lagos transportation system, where the figures that we don't know the source of those figures, so we don't know how scientific they are, but they are big. And when you see the people who are the capones,
drivers of that system,
and you see them all, you having hotels, all of them owning houses in Banana Island, VI, and all of them have their children abroad, no matter how lowly you might, if that is the word you want to use
describe
for them.
You
want to use to describe them. And it's been said that they are getting a humongous form of revenue, which, again, we don't know how much we can depend on the kind of talk you get on. They say you can't believe everything you read in the press. They say that largely governments have left them to their own devices. And can this continue? Because those are not modest forms of revenue that these people call, I don't know what they're properly called, call them the agberos, call them all that system.
So if you recall when I started, I said GDP to tax to GDP ratio is one of the lowest in Africa.
Yes, right.
If not the lowest, right? Barely 10%. And for OECD countries, they are looking at 34%. So it's a problem. But then that does not necessarily mean that these monies are not exchanging hands. I pointed out that there are certain, and I use the word maybe non-state actors or third parties, self-appointed third parties who have assumed certain positions. Listen, it's very simple. The people just want some form of structure as they commute. So anybody who stands and says, this is how we do it, they just follow. Especially if you look at this part of the world where we are supposedly very busy here in Lagos and everybody's always on the move. Government has played a very distant observer. Now, there are many factors. You have the political factors. You have the elections.
Yep.
You have the security angle to the conversation. But again, I say the failure of the local government system has continued to enable this challenge. So how about working closely with these fellows? And I will tell you, if we really want to look at the data of payments, levies, fines, and dues that are paid, and how much of that money eventually gets to the coffers of government, you get a staggering result. And I think it's some of these gaps that this Ease of Doing Business Tax Act is seemingly trying to do. But again, the fear is that if you don't address this issue properly, as you block a hole, they create another one.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just speaking to a small business owner, and I said, okay, you know, this law go help you now. You go fit get extra and all that. He said, okay, may they no go create another levy,
another avenue. Yeah.
So that is changed. So it's not just an implementation of a law conversation. It goes beyond that. There has to be also a political angle to it, which is an engagement system to be able to manage this personnel, manage these parties, and address some of these issues from the source. The next most important thing is to equip the local government to actively play its role. And it's beyond just releasing subventions to them. Local government elections must now be looked at a lot more intentionally. Right? I would even say that you should be more interested in who is your local government than who is your state governor. Because the point is, the person at the local government level is receiving money for your direct utilization.
And more so in this day and age.
In this day and age. And it's closer to you. So if you have a street light challenge in your street, that's a local government problem that can be fixed in hours.
Well, okay, coming back to you, Johnson, the point that he makes in there, would you like to add to that, the role of local government especially as the revenue in many cases has doubled, maybe a bit more, and the important role that they play here. And if you like, you could also comment on the informal sectors where we're talking about, particularly the so-called Agbero system, where billions and billions of nairas are collected, and we don't know how much of it is going to the government and how much looking away the government has intentionally done in the past, and how all of those have to be addressed in the the getting used to phase that we have once this thing takes off in 2026.
Yes, Uncle Yori, I think it has to do with the issue of willingness to pay. The key thing is that people are willing to pay if there is a value they will derive from that payment, because you're going to pay with value and you expect the government to also provide you value. You want to see that the taxes you pay are judiciously used and the government is carrying out its responsibilities. And which is what he was referring to when he talked about the failure, the collapse of local governments. Today, I live in a neighborhood where we contribute money to do our to distill the drainages. We contribute money to do street lights. We are paying security men, and then we are paying security men. These are some of the things that ordinary government should do. So when the government is not doing that, and you are contributing, which is why I said when we say that our tax rate is low, we don't factor in the informal taxes we are paying in the cost of providing what the government should ordinarily provide. So every home now today, almost every home has a generator. They are buying fuel elsewhere in the world. Nobody will have a generator. Even big hotels in the world, elsewhere in the world, do not have generator because they don't expect light to go. So you go and buy fuel to power your own house. If you live in Lagos, almost, I don't know if the pipe-borne water is still running again in Lagos. You have to do your borehole, or you have to buy water on a daily basis or weekly basis. Those are taxes, because why do I call it taxes? They are burdens you are bearing that the government should have borne for you. Assuming government is playing its own roles, starting from local government or to the federal government level, then to relieve Nigerians of that burden of incurring cost for public services that should have been provided by government at cheaper cost. And that way, you will pay gladly because you can see the benefit of your taxes. That will encourage voluntary compliance with tax payment. As it relates to the informal sector we were referring to, you see, the key thing is that when we say because our economy is still not yet formalized, it's difficult to track the income of very informal sectors. The organizer that my colleague there made reference to, it's difficult for you to determine how much a organizer earns unless what he puts in the bank. Because more people that come to pump their tires or fix their tires, they will just pay him if it's 200 or 1,000 or 500, and they give him cash and they put it in his pocket. So the key thing, and when an economy is largely informal, it's difficult for the tax authorities to effectively monitor and track incomes of informal effectively. Not that you can't catch economics informality, so that a lot of people are still outside the financial system or the banking sector. So you have cash transactions that are not captured and difficult to measure. And that's what we're referring to. So if you take, for instance, the peasant farmers, I don't imagine how many people have the capacity to determine how much income the man who is stealing his farm in Zamfara or in Yobe or in my village earns, so as to appropriately tax that person. But the more an economy becomes more formalized, the easier it is for government to track the earnings of business operators or economic agents, as well as impose or extract the appropriate tax.
Maybe I'd like to get your input on this, especially as your area of specialization, is startup businesses, and a lot of them might not be big. Yes, they can be, but they might not be big. And the point that you just made in there, how does government approach that? Because I think you were the person making the point that, look, a lot of things have been going on in the past that have just become convention. And so people don't like changing. We've become used to. How do you think we're going to, again, within the getting to understand these new laws, we're going to have to find out as we go along and take, corrective action as we go? Is that the way?
Yeah, but digitization is one key thing that government must now do intentionally. And if you don't digitize, you cannot effectively mine the right data to be able to even determine if the tax generation is going the way it's going, or if you need to improve your systems. Digitization is the way to go. We're in the artificial intelligence age. We've moved from the technological age. We're now in the artificial intelligence age, and government must now look intently to digitizing through artificial intelligence across all areas.
And I'll tell you, when you say artificial intelligence, for those of us that are not quite at your level, the very name is a contradiction. You just called it artificial, and you're calling it intelligent.
Technology-driven intelligence.
Okay.
Technology-driven intelligence. Okay. So we must rely on technology to be able to know and determine, especially working with this smallholder entities, and it's not rocket science. So if you look at the startups that have done immensely well in the fintech space, yes, a lot of them have digitized their processes, simplified that digitization, and taken it to the grassroots, to the unbanked, right? While the traditional institutions are still struggling to figure it out, small startups have taken financial services to the unbanked using digitization and artificial intelligence. And so first of all, we must digitize. One of the key things this new act is looking at is also, expanding its tax net to digital products and all that, right? You can only do so much if you understand it. So we must now look at technology. How do you tie in all these small businesses? So at a time, we had a very low percentage in numbers who had NIN, who had BVNs. Today, we have over almost 100 million compliance. That tells you that when you digitize certain things and you make it compulsory, but the infrastructure must be in place, right? And so once you tie in that system, you are able to understand what is happening with the smallholder farmers, with having simple systems in place where they look, nobody is keeping their money at home. Even if they are collecting the monies at hand, a lot of them are saving the little they can through certain new generation financial service systems and banking services. So we must now begin to look at how to harmonize those systems, have the technology that they need to be able to measure.
I'm afraid we've completely run out of time. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, it's left for me to thank you for making time for us this morning. We've completely run out of time, but you said it. Was it you or my friend in studio here that there's a heck of a lot to unpack? And so if we started to talk about this, we could be here for another 4 hours as you are giving various, views on the matter. So I want to thank you very much, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, CEO of Cowrie Assets Management Limited. Thank you once again for joining us. And
thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. And also to thank you, Mr. Mori Ediogeawire. I think I'm getting better every time I try.
Yeah, a lot better. Next time I'll give you a gift. Thank you, Uncle.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming on the program. Okay, so that's our program. We're going to have to leave it there. I'm sure we'll return to the subject. All that's left for me is to say do have a great weekend. See you on Monday, God willing, with a fresh edition. I'm Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.
Niger, it's time to rise to victory because season 10 is here.
That you did not come and greet. I'm coming for the crown.
Nigerian Idol needs to bang. You're actually my idol. And say yes from me. That was good.
I'm here for a revenge.
I'm speechless.
10 seasons of unforgettable talent.
That's the best performance I've had today.
10 seasons of breathtaking performances. And this year, we celebrate the journey like never before.
I'm actually speechless.
I love you.
You're a superstar.
This is more than a competition. It's a celebration of music, passion, and dreams. It's your voice and your victory. Don't miss the biggest season yet. Nigerian Idol Season 10.
Sponsored by Biggie for every moment.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
This Salah, don't just celebrate smart with ShopX TV. For a limited time only, enjoy up to 50% off our best-selling products. That's thousands of naira in savings, but only while stock lasts. Let's kick things off with the ultimate kitchen game changer, the CookX Air Fryer Oven. This is not just an air fryer, it's a rotisserie, a deep fryer, a dehydrator, a grill, an oven, and even a microwave, all in one compact unit. Buying all these separately could cost you over 1.5 million naira. But today, you can get the CookX Air Fryer Oven for just 299,950 naira. But that's not all. Call now and we will slash another 120,000 naira off. That's right, get this incredible kitchen essential for just 179,950 naira. Save space, save time, save money, and cook like a pro at home. Next up, say goodbye to Canter Cluster and hello to efficiency with the CookX 4-in-1 blender. This powerhouse blends, juice, grind, and process your food all in one sleek machine. Why buy 4 separate appliances for 600,000 naira when you can get the CookX 4-in-1 blender from ShopX for just 189,950 naira? And right now, we are taking off 74,000 naira more, bringing the price down to just 115,950 naira. That's premium kitchen tech at an unbeatable price. Now, let's talk about the health and fitness. Why go to the gym when the gym can come to you? Introducing the ultimate Total Crunch, your complete full body workout system. Tone your abs, sculpt your legs, strengthen your core, and build the upper body, all from the comfort of your home. You'll need multiple machines and a pricey gym membership to get the same results, costing up to 5 million naira. But right now on ShopX TV, get the ultimate Total Crunch for just 445,950 naira. And yes, we are knocking off 100,000 naira more. You pay only 345,950 naira for the fitness machine that does it all. But the smartest move of all? Get our Salah Health and Home bonus. All 3 of these amazing products in one unbeatable package. Get the CookX Air Fryer Oven, the CookX 4-in-1 Blender, and the Ultimate Total Crunch for just 551,850 Naira. That's almost 1 million Naira in savings. Call the number on your screen now or scan the QR code to claim your discount. These deals are exclusive to ShopX TV and are only available for a limited time. Celebrate smart this Salah only on ShopX TV.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news. At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Is my fatherland. God bless Akwa.
We will invite all Akwa Ibomites to arise to the faith of greatness with our Rise agenda.
The sun is rising, the land is peaceful. It's so amazing that I can see. I want you to
Hello and welcome to TVC Midday News. I am Abosedi Adeniwadremi. There's finally light at the end of the tunnel in the long-running political crisis in Rivers State. The Minister of the FCT and former Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has confirmed that his rift with current Governor Siminalayi Fubara has been resolved thanks to a peace meeting brokered by President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja. Speaking after the closed-door meeting, Mr. Wike said both sides have agreed to bury their hatchet and work together as one political family. He described the resolution as final, adding that everything is over. Governor Fubara also confirmed the truce, calling it divine intervention and a crucial turning point for the state. But this reconciliation comes months after high drama. Back in March, President Tinubu suspended Governor Fubara, his deputy Ngozi Odu, and members of the State Assembly for 6 months, citing the failure of earlier peace efforts. A state of emergency was declared and retired Naval Chief Ibok Iteibas was appointed to oversee the state's affairs. Now, following Thursday's meeting with Mr. Fubara, Mr. Wike and the suspended lawmakers, the governor said the move signals a return to peace and order in the oil-rich state. This is the second meeting between President Tinubu and Governor Fubara since that suspension. Earlier this June, Governor Fubara had visited the president in Lagos during his 2-week stay in what many saw as a first step toward reconciliation. For more on this